Imagine walking into a new English teacher's classroom on the first day of school, and upon entering, being offered plates of cookies. They're not just any first day of school cookies, though, as the new English teacher is quick to reassure everyone that the cookies are homemade and the plates are made of recycled bamboo. This was the first impression of Mrs. O'Donnell that I had at the beginning of last year, and based on this first impression, I had a feeling that it was possibly going to be a good year in English class. Mainly, it was the recycled bamboo. A few weeks later, though, when she brought the whole class tea, served in little miniature china cups, I knew it was going to be a good year in English class. Episcopal is filled with excellent teachers, all with varying and diverse teaching methods, but Mrs. O'Donnell is one of those teachers that just gets teaching. I can honestly say that there was never a dull moment in all of American literature last year. She is a teacher that, above all, wants her students to think, and not just about what's on the curriculum, but to truly think. Every student that has had her has appreciated the creativity that she brings to the classroom and the rare gift she has for bringing out the best abilities and qualities in each of her students. Her classes are always relevant, innovative, and fun, but this doesn't just apply to her classroom, it applies to the great person many of us at Episcopal have gotten to know over the last year. Most of you, though, probably know her best as the English teacher with the remarkable talents of perfectly imitating Snooki. She's actually one of the easiest people to talk to, whether it's about the feminist subtext of a novel, or shared obsessive minimalism, the news, pop culture, or just really about anything. It's a pleasure to know and to have been taught by such an innovative, creative, and truly forward-thinking mind, not to mention the best-dressed faculty member at Episcopal. Please stand to greet my teacher, mentor, and friend, Mrs. O'Donnell.
Thank you. Please have a seat. So, a little over a decade ago, an 11-year-old girl woke up in the middle of the night because she heard gunshots and singing outside of her house. She looked out the window and she saw gangs of men throwing grenades into homes as they sang happy songs, in some cases busting right into people's homes and just slaughtering whole families. This little girl watched as her father, her uncle, her cousins, and both of her brothers were killed by these men, who continued to sing as they went further down the street and massacred 23 children who were hiding in a building. This was in Kosovo in 1999, and when it happened, I can remember thinking to myself, where was God? A little bit later, a few years later, a close friend of mine unselfishly decided to help a friend who was too sick to work. It was his only day off. He had not had a day off in 3 or 4 weeks. He showed up at work, put on his uniform, got on the plane, gave people blankets and pillows. He loved serving people. This, of course, was September 11th, 2001, and when I got the phone call, when all the landlines were finally free, one of my thoughts had to be, where was God? So when I heard about the chapel theme this year, when I heard what it was going to be, I got nervous and worried. I was worried because I really love coming to chapel. No matter how busy I am or who it is who's getting up to speak, I always come away with some little nugget of inspiration. And I didn't want to lose that. I didn't want my idea of God or my beliefs about what is possible make me feel disconnected from all of you as we gather together in peace and gratitude. So I did what my own religious practice has taught me to do, and I sat with it. And I sat with it, and I sat with it. And then finally, after Ms. Baker's speech last week, things started to come together. And the best way that I can explain this to you is to start with some visual aids, starting actually with your own hands. So, a little bit cheesy, but if you just stop for a second and take a look at your own hand. Do it, really. All right. Okay. This hand, which has been with you since you were in your mother's womb. This hand that has fed and cleansed and clothed you. This hand that we really don't think very often about. All of the atoms and molecules in this hand were created about 13 billion years ago. In fact, everything that you see in this room, everything that you see in the universe, all were created at the exact same moment about 13 billion years ago. So you might think that you're 14 years old, or 16, or 25, or 52, but you're walking around in a body that's made of 13 billion year old stardust. And that's quite a legacy to carry. Your hand also isn't just a thing that's separate from all the other things in the room or in the universe. Science tells us there actually are no things, they're just processes, unfolding in time and having relationships with one another. There are relatively slow processes like this podium, which is slowly decomposing and turning into something else as we speak. Relatively fast processes like the sun that shot through the chapel this morning and is now landing onto this podium and helping it to deteriorate even more quickly. It's not just the molecules and their interactions that are connected in this way. And the only way that I can show you is to actually show you and to draw it. Two apologies first. One, to the art department, because my drawings are horrible. And two, to the science department for any gross oversimplifications which may occur. Every generation thinks that it's found the smallest thing. So they always say, we found it. It's the tiniest particle. It never gets smaller than this. This is it. And then, of course, they find something smaller. But we're going to start with quarks. These are kind of pre-drawn for you on the side. So here we have quarks in the center. If you get enough quarks to kind of stick together, you get an atom. And if you get the right kind of atoms to stick together, you get elements. And if you get the right combination of elements, let's say carbon and oxygen and nitrogen and hydrogen, then you get the building blocks for a cell, which is the smallest form of life on Earth. Now, if you can get a cell to actually cooperate with some other cells, instead of killing each other off, working together, you get an organism like a human being. And if you get enough human beings together, you have a community living on a planet that is moving around a star. The star, which is medium-sized and is only one of 100 billion stars in the Milky Way galaxy, which is only one of billions and billions of galaxies in the known universe. Okay, so here's my question for you. If something happens, let's say, here, in this circle, so like midway down, what gets affected? Right, everything. And if something happens here, in the teeny tiny part, what gets affected? Everything. If something happens here, this circle where the individual human being is, what gets affected? Everything. And so this means that everything you do and everything you say, every decision that you make affects everybody and everything that is around you and beyond. This is a massive amount of power to have. This is a huge responsibility. It's the power to make things happen, to make things change, to create, to destroy, and it's this power that makes all things possible, both positive and negative. So it is this power within us that made gang lynchings in the South possible. But it's also the power that made the civil rights movement possible. And these things, the positive power and the negative power, they're not actually separate. It's not a duality. They come from the exact same source, and it's the source of the choices that each of us makes every day. This cause and effect connection, this oneness that is so much larger and so much more powerful than we could ever fathom, this is God for some of us. Jesus said, if you bring forth what is within you, what you have will save you. The Bhagavad Gita tells us that each one of us is a Krishna. The Talmud reads, the kingdom of God is within you. The Quran says, Allah is within man and man is within Allah. The Baha'i believe that every creative thing in the universe is just a door that leads to God's knowledge. The Sikh text, the Adi Granth, describes one God as all-pervading and dwelling in the human mind. Taoists focus on how one individual, how their interaction with all of the people and all of the things around them affect the universe. Confucius taught his followers to have faith in the possibility of ordinary people becoming awe-inspiring sages. And the Buddha said, we all have Buddha nature. There's a Buddha inside of everybody. And so you have to recognize this in yourselves, but more importantly, you must see this in others. And all of these also said, this soon too shall pass. So we're very small creatures living on a very small planet that circles a less than remarkable star. And this star will someday collapse on itself and die out. And way before that happens, everything that is now alive will die. And all of the things which are not alive will change form or seemingly disappear. It is all very temporary. And so your job now, as a human being alive on the earth now, your job is to be aware and mindful of the ripple effect that all of your choices have on everything that's around you, so that you can learn how to make choices that don't cause suffering, but help to alleviate it. Make choices that actually help and not harm. To do the things that you already know are right. This is what makes all things possible. It's you. It's the God that's within you. It's you having self-control, faith, honesty, courtesy, kindness, generosity, gratitude, courage, respect, and yes, even sportsmanship. It's no accident that these things just happen to be our stripes. These are ideas that guide us and unite us. And so, because of this, we're never really on our own. It is a scientific impossibility for us to be isolated from one another, since, whether we like it or not, we are inextricably bound together by energy, by matter, and by unseen forces that are far greater than ourselves and far larger than we could ever imagine, and far more powerful than we could ever imagine. We are bound together by the power of our choices, by the cause and effect nature of the universe. And so, we are bound together by God, whatever that may mean to you. Personally, I see this power in each of you. I see the God in everyone here. And this is actually why I'm a teacher, because I want to work in service of this. I want to serve the possibility that exists within each of you. So look at your hand one more time. It's the last cheesy moment. And just for a moment here, put it over your heart. Okay? This small muscle that never takes a break, it never stops to rest. You don't even have to think about it. It just does it all on its own. This heart is married to every in-breath that you take. And to be mindful of that breath is to be mindful of the spark of life that animates us. And to be mindful of that spark is to be mindful of all that connects us and all the power that we have because of this. So, with you, with God, all things are possible. Thanks for your attention.